Okay. A few things. Obviously, we're at Grant's place with his unnecessarily fancy camera for this particular endeavor.
Hi, Grant's place and Grant's fancy camera.
Before we get into this, a few things that are worth noting is that the topic that this movie covers and that we're going to discuss is very, very, very sensitive, and it has a pucker factor of about 10, pretty much.
Yes, this subject matter is not for the faint of heart.
So we are going to talk about things that are going to be a bit uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And there's no way around it, quite frankly. So it's probably going to be a little philosophical, a little political. If it's not what you're interested in, turn away now. If it is, then keep watching. But we're here to talk about The Hunt, which is a foreign film, which none of us knew about going into it.
Yeah.
That made the following of the dialogue rather difficult for me because I'm a slow reader, so there were many lines that I did not catch in their entirety.
Yeah, and it stars what's the actor's name?
Mads Mikkelsen.
Is that really his name?
That's the best pronunciation I can give for it.
Okay. Hannibal and that villain from Casino Royale.
Le Chiffre.
Le Chiffre, for everyone else who doesn't know who we're talking about. First off, it's worth getting right off the bat that this is a great movie.
Oh, yes.
This is probably the first time in a long time that any of us we couldn't even talk.
We were speechless as this movie was over.
Not out of being flabbergasted of poor quality, but just of being in awe of how effective this and honest and top-notch this film was.
It's not Smurfs 2, is basically what we're getting at.
Far from it. Oh my goodness.
That'd be a whole different movie. Anyway. I'm gonna give a little intro with give basically the first half hour of the movie a little bit to give an idea of why this is gonna be a bit. This is an not an odd movie to talk about, just a very controversial movie to talk about.
Yes.
It's very difficult because it's one of those things where it touches several ideas, some of them a bit more relevant than others, I guess one could say, but it's one thing that's just applicable to so many situations.
Yes.
So what the story's about is Le Chiffre plays a kindergarten teacher
Named Lucas.
Named Lucas, who lives in. Did they ever say where he lives?
No, they didn't.
We're assuming that we don't really. We're thinking this movie is Dutch, right?
It's Danish, I think.
Danish. Okay.
So
somewhere in Danish. All right.
Or somewhere in Denmark.
Denmark. Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
It's very obvious that geography is not my strong suit right now. Anyway, so what happens is Lucas is best friends with this man named was it Eric?
I think so. Yeah, I actually can't remember.
Okay, either way, he's friends with this other guy whose daughter is in his kindergarten.
The daughter is named Carla.
Carla.
Clara and
Clara,
and her father's name was Theo.
Theo and his wife Agnes. That one I remember.
Yeah.
I don't know why that one I remember out of the three, but either way,
because it's a much more common name.
Maybe. Well, so is Theo. So
yeah.
Anyway, that's not.
We've heard of it. It's not common.
Okay, fair enough. Anyway, so what happens is Lucas goes over to his best friend's house quite a lot, and he spends a lot of time with Clara. You can kind of already see where this is going, but there's a part in the movie.
In
all fairness, well, yeah.
He walks her home a few times and brings his dog with him, and Clara is very fond of his dog.
And of him, which is what gets into the.
Yeah.
Which gets into the more awkward part about, I think, 10, 15 minutes into the movie, something like that. Lucas is playing with a bunch of boys, like, just roughhousing, like all that kind of stuff with pillows and monsters on, all the fun stuff you expect kindergarten teachers to do. And then when he gets on the ground, the kids start tickling him. Clara comes up and
kisses him
on the mouth, And of course, Luke does the smart thing. Immediately just takes her, and apparently she also slips something into his his coat pocket, like love letter, pretty much.
Yeah, it's basically this little envelope that had like
like
a heart,
a bead a bead heart or something like that. And he does the smart thing. Takes her aside. It's like, okay, that's not okay. Don't do that. That's something for grown-ups to do, and just don't do that again, pretty much. And this proceeds to piss Clara off. And later that day, one of the older teachers, like one of the head takers, I think.
Gretel.
Some of the G.
Greth. It's like Grethe.
Yes.
Yeah. Greth, I think.
Greth comes up and she starts talking to him, and she's out saying like, "I hate him. He's stupid. He's ugly." And then
he's a boy. He has a penis.
And then that's where things get really bad.
Yeah,
and it basically says like,
she
basically says, "I've seen his penis," or like he showed me his penis.
Because what happened was like a friend of her brother's, the brother and the brother's friend were like screwing around, looking at porn off their iPad. Like
is that what happened?
Yeah, because that part when he's on the iPad, basically they flash it at her. It's like, look, yeah, he's like, get a look at this.
Oh, that's what happened.
And
yeah,
basically
I completely missed that.
And basically that's what puts that image in her head.
And then they get... Okay, that makes more sense now.
Yes, it does.
See, I missed that part because I think I was dealing with a lot of crisis on my phone. But anyway. So, yeah, that happens. And, of course, the teacher doesn't respond to this very well, as is to be expected. And the movie basically devolves into basically how this confused lie basically systematically destroys this man's life.
Yeah.
In every aspect.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where just like, it's the idea of mob rule basically taking over.
There's no right or wrong answer to this. Like, this is what I've talked about.
Well, it's one of those things where, like, I think they're saying, like, well, obviously in a case like this is wrong, but at the same time, it's like, it's understandable.
And granted, especially in the context of education, those types of allegations need to be taken very seriously and investigated thoroughly. Yeah,
but at the same time, it's kind of funny how it's just like, they completely flip the situation. Like, you generally, it's like, yeah, you get that kind of thing where it's like, you're trying to find this guy's guilty, but instead they twist it, showing like right off the bat, this is an innocent guy, and he's basically just a victim of circumstance.
Pretty much. Well, it's easy to, as an audience member, to say it's like, oh, he's obviously innocent. Why can't other people see that? But like, when you think about it from the other people's perspective, you can understand like, and we see this all the time today, which is just like people hear an accusation, regardless of whether or not it's true or there's any supporting evidence of it, we're going to automatically assume that he's guilty, whether or not that's actually the case.
But that was the other thing, though, that they also made a connection to that I thought was interesting, was how childish it was. Because throughout the topic, they mentioned how, like, now that at some point it gets worse. Basically, the other kids start saying that similar things happened to them, even though obviously it didn't.
And they basically start making up this incomplete story. Like, but
it's more like basically it's just like they hear it, it gets in their minds, they think it's true. It's like they compare.
Propaganda.
Yeah,
not necessarily propaganda. It's just child confusion.
Yeah,
pretty
and
much.
basically they compare that to the mob. You know, basically this mob that has the same thing. It's like the idea that they're spreading this thing that they think is true. It's basically...
And it gets more and more worse and convoluted the more it gets spread around.
Yeah.
And everybody assumed, or rather all the adults assumed, that Clara wasn't lying because she never lied before.
Yeah.
Or that she would lie, but I don't think it's the fact that she lied before. It's more that she wouldn't lie about this.
Yeah.
But
I think, because like, children lie all the time.
Oh yes, they do, and she even said herself that she didn't.
But then they didn't believe that.
That she didn't understand.
But that was
what
the other
was going
interesting
on.
thing. That was, I think the other thing I'm trying to point out is like, on a family lands, on the scope of family, like this happens throughout because there's a point where just like we want to. It's like when someone's in danger, we want to believe that they're telling the truth, and at the same time, they show like with Lucas and his son Marcus, who eventually tries to defend him. There's the idea that for those we look up to, we want to believe that they're telling the truth. It's this idea of like how different people focus on what they want to believe true in different scenarios.
Yes.
Like for the but in the end, it's like we want to believe that no, these people aren't lying. Mm-hmm. But it's almost like it was touching on the idea of the unconditional love, and the point but that was the other thing they kind of brought up like going back to the whole idea of this fear and panic spreading, is I noticed the idea of like when she was saying like, if your kid has been a victim of this, they might be experiencing like headaches, nightmares, all this stuff, bedwetting, and I'm kind of laughing in the back of my head because
It's like, don't all kids go through that all the time?
No, but that applies to more than just that, because there's always these scenarios where like when there's a big illness coming over, there's always like some generic things that can be applied to any of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like I thought that's something that kind of bothered me. Is like they just assume these very minor and very common things. Like it's like, oh, you used all of them. So,
but at the same time, how many times does that happen? It's just in terms of like illness, someone being in trouble, someone possibly being afflicted by something else.
Especially around the holiday season, people get sick all the time.
Yeah, but the thing that brings up is the idea of that, like, in the case of fear, we will believe the simplest things. Because, like, it is so true. Like, I admit I'm a hypochondriac sometimes, so when I hear I got this something, I might think that, oh, crap, it's like, you know...
Like parasites in the couch cushions?
Pretty much.
And to...
In all fairness, I did have that issue. It's just, I don't know where the hell it came from.
And
it's gonna crap on everyone in the fucking station. Anyway, we'll explain that story later.
Yeah, that's a
Let's
side
not.
note. And from a universal family perspective, it is very scary to parents to hear that their child could have been or is potentially being abused in some way.
That being said, I'm kind of wondering. Again, this is a difficult situation, so I understand why she responded the way she did. But I kind of thought like the preschool headmaster,
Headmistress.
Yeah.
headmistress, kind of jumped the gun in kind of
bit.
a big fucking way.
Yeah.
Like she didn't just she didn't let it deal with Flores. She told fucking everybody about this. Pretty much assuming assuring this man's condemnation before any real official investigation was taking place.
That's the thing, though. Another thing is, like, as I said, we get in so many instances where, like, we hear the bad, we'll jump straight to it right away, regardless of innocence or not. I could relate it to certain things that are going on today, but out of respect, I won't, even though it is fairly applicable. But it's the idea that...
We don't want to start a rage war in the comments.
Well, that too, but it's like the idea... But just saying, it's the idea of regardless of innocence or guilt. It's the idea that in the case of fear and we think something's bad, we almost want to jump straight to it.
Mm-hmm. And it's like, we've seen that as pretty much as long as humans exist, we've seen that just like as regardless whether or not it's true, worthless jump to that mentality. It's like, oh, they're guilty, and nothing's going to change our mind to that, because honestly, it's easier to believe people are bad than to believe people are good.
Yes. Unfortunately.
Yeah.
And that's really what I think that's even brought up in a certain way at towards the very end of the movie.
Oh hell, it's brought up in the middle.
True.
This
More
thing
explicitly.
This thing surprised me. I think surprised all of us. Is the fact that it did not end on his innocence being proven.
No. You actually never see his trial. You never see people.
It's basically assumed that the trial got thrown out.
Because there was no case.
You as an audience member for this film are never shown people forgiving him or anything like that.
The only one who really forgave him was Theo.
Yes.
Yeah, who's the... I think that was a great scene too. And by the way, just talking about the movie itself, aside from the controversial themes of it, is that the acting all around is fantastic.
Yes, it is.
Especially the chief. I'm sorry, I can't pronounce his name.
Mads Mikkelsen.
Mads Mikkelsen. Okay. Just his performance. If there is a single person out there who still believes this man is a stoic actor, you are dead wrong. I'm just gonna say it right there. I know opinion is subjective, but fuck you, you're wrong.
But anyway, back to the story. So, like, after the whole trial is clearly thrown out because, well, on the technicality that, these kids were all lying about something that, well, not lying, but we're talking about something that never existed.
Hearsay.
Exactly.
Like, what happens is, to be more specific, is basically the story passes around like telephone, essentially, and more details get added. Like, everyone had, like, intricate knowledge of, like, the walls of this basement in this guy's house that never existed, pretty much. And they're slamming with the furniture, and it turns out, no fucking basement. There was nothing there at all. It was all complete nonsense. And the police found that after they arrested him, 2/3 of the way through the movie, I think.
Yeah, but of course, despite that...
But even then, like, even after that was proven, people still hated him. They still basically hunted him down, made his life a living hell, regardless of whether or not he was actually innocent.
They threw a fucking boulder through his window on a winter night, and that scene made me jump in my seat.
And spoiler alert, if you can actually find this movie, they kill his fucking dog.
It was so sweet.
That's just wrong.
That made me sad.
Leave the dog out of it.
Well, here's the thing, though. That's another thing I kind of appreciate, is that they showed, like, in a case like this...
Yeah, stuff like that does happen.
No, that even the innocents, like, they're suffering from something, like, through the actions, whether or not it happened or not, of someone they're related to.
Yes.
And it's just like, it's a depressing thought. Like, just the idea that it's like...
It's very realistic,
yeah,
though.
I know, it's, like, depressing but believable. It's just, like, the idea that even though there's, like, the one guy to blame, is that for some reason it spreads to everyone around him.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it does.
And it's like...
Well, it's like, here's the thing about it's like, I've mentioned this a few times in other reviews, is like, if you're going to talk about a controversial issue, you want to make a statement about it, really explore it and really talk about it. This movie really does, to the full extent it can be really talked about, but it's never black and white. It never feels forced. Like, that's the big important thing. It does it in a way that's realistic and believable, but never throws it in your face or makes it apparent that it's trying to convey some kind of message.
Yeah.
In fact, a lot of the movie is very ambiguous in a lot of ways.
Yes, and I actually really respected that characteristic about this film. There's no one good guy, there's no one bad guy, there's no black and white clear-cut answer. There's a lot of gray, and that's what actual life is like.
Yeah, it's pretty much, and it's like, story-wise, I mean, it's like the only innocent guy is, you know, obviously Lucas, but in terms of, like, the people who are, like, harassing him, it's like, these aren't bad people, these are just people who are angry and afraid.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's like, and I think the reason they're also hurt more is because, like, they show early on, this is a very close-knit community. It's the idea of that...
A very small
their trust,
community.
That their trust and, like, this person that they thought they trusted...
With their children.
Yeah, could potentially do what he didn't do.
Yeah. And basically the movie basically systematically takes away pretty much every person that he has in his life.
Yeah, it's like things are a little bit hopeful in the end, but it's just it's
still clear that it's gonna haunt him for the rest of his life.
Yeah,
because there's like that one person who believes. I'm sorry, keep going. Sorry, I keep interrupting you. Go ahead.
Well, you don't even know who it could be. One, it could be many, but it's just like we're gonna do a spoiler on the ending here because just the way they did it was just phenomenal. Mm-hmm. It's like it kind of ties back to him hunting earlier in the woods where he's hunting a deer.
Yes.
And they make a lot of ties to the idea of how, aside from the titles, like you get a lot of visual cues of like. What was it, when they're in the house and Marcus is scouring through, you see a picture of a fox hunt. And, like, along with this family line, I just thought that was
It was
brilliant.
beautiful.
Well, it's like what happens in the movie is after he's proven innocent, it's actually just right after Theo finally forgives him.
Yeah.
And starts believing that he didn't do this.
Yeah, it basically goes by a year later, and they're celebrating...
Yeah, just flash forwards a year later.
They're celebrating his Luke's sons basically having the ability to hunt.
Yeah, it's his coming of age for his son.
Yeah, they show things are a little bit better because, like, the people are actually talking to Lucas now. He's back with a girl who's supposed to be his girlfriend, like, earlier on that he kind of had a tiff with. Yes, Nadia. And it's like... Okay, I forgot to say, of course, obviously, like, his family trusted him. But, of course, you know, the whole ties in the whole...
Like, basically, the only people that support him through this movie is Marcus's godfather.
Yeah. Yes. No, because that was... that was also his family.
Was that his family?
Yeah.
I didn't know if they were just, like, good friends or they were immediate family.
I'm not sure, but, yeah, it's like, it seems like only the close support him. But anyway, it's like, what happens is, after he gets a gun, they go hunting together. He's out alone, and just out of nowhere, just someone, you know, a shot's taken right at him, just, like, barely misses him. When he looks up, you can't tell who it is. You just see a figure basically being blackened by, like, the backlight.
Which is gorgeous. In terms of cinematography, there are many gorgeous moments like that in this film.
And it's just, it was perfect. It's like this idea of, like, two things. One, it was like this idea of a ghost haunting him, and two, to point out the irrelevancy of who, but just the fact that this distrust still exists and that, you know, he's going to be haunted by it.
Yes. He's going to be scared and uneasy for the rest of his existence.
Yeah.
Like, even the grocery clerks...
They treated him horribly.
They did, but even then, you can understand why. Like, kind of goes back to what Graham was saying. When people are scared, they act irrationally.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
often against the basic human basic human logic or emotion, because they're just acting out of impulse and fear.
And I get that, and I understand why they would be angry enough to refuse him service, but
But then they beat the crap out of him.
yes.
Yeah, I also appreciate though, the guys who made this film were willing to show what the ostracized go through as well.
Mm-hmm.
It's like they show, like basically, it's one of those things where like it twists Lucas kind of when he,
Yeah.
over time.
And you would expect him to. He loses everything. Like, of course, he loses his son, he loses his girlfriend, loses his dog, loses his friends because he pushes
His
everyone
job.
away, his job, and just over the course of the movie, just loses everything really important to him. And in the end, he just like, you have that great shot, that great silent moment where he's sitting there in the dark. Like, I think it's right after he buries his dog, or is it after he gets back from the grocery store? It's after he gets back from the grocery store where he's sitting there in the dark in the chair and just not doing anything, just staring there. And it gives you a lot of breath. It gives you a lot of time to just focus on what's happening.
Yeah.
And let you kind of soak it in. This is an intense movie.
Very much so.
If you can't tell from what we're talking about, this is intense, and it never lets up pretty much from beginning to end.
Yeah, pretty much as soon as it ended, all we could say was,
Jesus.
or holy shit, or yeah. This film packs a wallop.
Yeah, but it's like, now the more I'm talking about, the more it's like this really is almost a flawless movie.
Yes.
Yes.
Like, as far as I can't really even say anything bad about it. Like, I mean, not just from because of the topic at hand, but also because like it does it so well and doesn't let up about it, but also doesn't force to feed you it either. It talks about it just the way it needs to be talked about.
Yeah.
So it's like this, and like, it makes me kind of sad this movie doesn't get more wide release, because it's a movie that should get more attention than I think it's getting right now.
Yeah.
Yes. It should be noted that we saw this in our local independent movie theater.
Right next to the donut shop.
Yeah, it's like, if there's only one real complaint I had, of course, it's more or less a double-edged sword, because it is fairly believable that this would happen. The idea that, when Clara was saying that, I'm sorry, I was just being stupid, that they didn't believe her. It's kind of like that whole knight and knave thing.
Mm.
It's
Well,
like one's telling the truth, one's telling the lie. When you hear conflicting statements, it's like, which one do you believe?
Well, it's like there are a few people that seemed a bit naive about children in general. Like
that was the one thing that really annoyed me.
Yeah, that bothered me too, especially like the kindergarten headmistress.
Yeah.
Basically,
Like,
that's like, children never lie. It's like, yes, they do. They lie all the time. Granted, much more serious subject matter, so I can understand that further perspective of that. But say children never lie and they always tell the truth, you are naive.
Yeah.
Yes,
and that was
I
really
mean,
my only major complaint, I'd say.
I've worked with kids, and I adore kids, but some kids can be master manipulators.
Yeah. It's like, what's that Bill Cosby routine?
But I'd say I think we've probably said all we really need to say about it, right?
Well, it's like, I guess going back to just the movie itself, aside just talking about the themes of it, which again, like I said, tackles perfectly. Just the performances are all really solid. The scene, the pacing, the lighting, the
editing.
cinematography, the editing, just everything about this is as good as I think I've seen all year.
Yes.
Which, granted, is not saying much because it's been a really bad year for movies.
Yeah,
But
it's like I've seen, like, even the ones I thought were like really good, like Mud and Fruitvale Station. This just went past them.
Mhm.
And like I didn't think it would do that, but for me it did.
it's like, well, we had no expectations or really any idea of what this movie was about, except that it had a really good rating on Rotten Tomato. That's pretty.
And now we know why.
And I had the guy from Hannibal, and
Yeah,
that's
it's like,
all we know going
Again,
into
I looked
it.
at the last minute like what the plot was.
We were just like, hey, it's student night. We can get in for $6. Want to go? Sure, let's do it. And then we see this an hour and 45 minutes later. Holy crap.
Yeah, and it wasn't until it started that we realized that it was a foreign language film.
Yeah. That was a fun discovery. It's like, oh, I'm going to have to read. Okay. It is
Yeah.
a Shakespeare movie. Like, you were comparing this movie to Shakespearean tragedy
Yes.
when you walked out of this.
Yes, I was saying that this plays out like a Shakespearean tragedy. It starts off with this very community feel. It has comic relief moments. So you have your Rosencrantz and Guildenstern with the jokes that Lucas's friends make for some much needed levity. there are complications and misunderstandings and twists and turns that make everything go awry, and there is no clear-cut happy ending. That's the basic trajectory for a Shakespearean tragedy.
And just like a real Shakespearean tragedy, I have to turn on the subtitles so I can understand what the hell's going on. But yeah, and there were some great jokes in this movie too. The ones that were there were pretty fucking hilarious.
Yes, they were.
And very much needed.
Yes.
Those are like, I don't think we can really say them though, because like they're one of those things where just like.
Yeah, they were kind of spur of the moment. You have to
Yeah.
know the context, but. Yeah, there's really not much more I can say. It was like, I loved it. I think it's one of the best movies I've seen all year.
Agreed.
I mean, it probably was the best movie I've seen all
It's like,
year.
if you can find this movie, I highly recommend it. If you can't, I wouldn't be necessarily surprised, because it is a foreign movie, and of course those are very hard to find in theaters.
And be warned, it's not for the faint of heart.
No.
It's not.
It's just.
It's not a family film, and it's not for children.
It is a very.
It's brutal. It's unforgiving. It won't let
It's
up.
honest.
At least mentally speaking.
Yeah.
It is one of the most intricate, honest, in terms of cinematography, editing, and pacing, one of the most gorgeous films you will see this year.
It takes a very messy and very difficult issue.
Well, hell, it takes multiple of them.
And
Yes.
multiple ones, but it doesn't shy away from really talking about it and really exploring it to, like I said before, its full extent of what needs to be talked about. It doesn't hold back, and I love that about that. And I love movies that do that, the ones that make you think
Yes, me
and
too.
make you challenge your perceptions of what you think may be right or wrong.
Yeah.
Me
So
too.
it's like, on that note, I thought, like, it's very rare when I can find a movie that does that, and this movie did it in spades.
Yes.
So if anything I have said over the course of the past 20 to 30 minutes that appealed to you in any way, go watch this movie. Find it. If you can't find it in theaters, buy it on DVD. Support this movie. If this does not get nominated for Best Foreign Movie at some point during the Oscar season, I'll be seriously pissed off. So
Me too, and that's a category I ordinarily don't care about.
neither do I. But in this case, like, it's worth checking out. Yes, you have to read. Sorry, but it's worth checking out. Even if it means going to the theater next to the donut shop. So, I think that's about all I got. You guys got anything else?
No.
I've pretty much said what I had to say. It ran the full gamut of reactions. I was scared. I was sad. I laughed. I was enthralled. I felt sympathy for all of the characters, really, to an extent.
Yeah, that's another thing that's worth noting. These are very likable characters, even the ones that do horrible things.
Yeah.
Is that, especially Theo in particular, kind of bounces back and forth between angry and sad. You get why he's feeling all these different conflicted feelings, but you still like him as a person, and you kind of want him to kind of like come around, or you want to just see him work through this, and he does, and it's great. But
and it's not overly emotional. It's not forced. He does it in his own way in his own time.
yeah, and just just going back to Luke, it's just a phenomenal performance.
Yes.
And like I don't think he's gonna get nominated, but I'd really like to see him get nominated for something.
Yeah.
Because this guy is just a great actor, and he's elevated to godlike proportion in my mind at this point. And I can't wait to see what he does next. So that's all I got. So
Yeah.
all right. So
I think everything's pretty much been said.
Yes.
okay. So
Let's just see this movie if you
See
can.
it.
Was
Phenomenal.
find it, do whatever you gotta do. But that's all we got. We got some catching up to do because pretty much everyone was busy last weekend apparently. So we still gotta do reviews for Elysium, Planes, Percy Jackson, Kick-Ass 2, and whatever the hell else.
Well, Kick-Ass 2 is out this weekend.
Well, yeah, but I'm thinking we're gonna probably catch everything for the next weekend and a half. So I'm
Fair
counting
enough.
next weekend stuff. Maybe Mortal Instruments. I don't know if we're doing that one. It all depends. So I think that's all we got. So see you later.
Thanks.
Have a good night.
Yeah.
Alright.
Thank you for watching.
Now someone's got to get up and turn off the camera. Your fancy camera, Grant. You better turn it up.
Yeah.